I am Joni, and I am here with my dear friend Christy for another episode of Evolving Democracy. And today we are talking about bringing outlaws in. Now, we commonly think of outlaws as the Old West, the people who are out there with their guns ablazing and doing railroad heists. But there's actually two definitions of outlaw. And the first, we're talking about both of them, but the first is really important to understand. So, according to Merriam Webster, the first definition of outlaw is a person excluded from the benefit or protection of the law. And the second definition is the more common one that we think about, a lawless person or a fugitive from the law. But we're talking about both, a person excluded from the law and those who are lawless or think that they are above the law or can get away from the law. And we want to bring both of those groups under this umbrella of the rule of law. What do you think, Christy?
Well, that's the whole idea of the law, is it's supposed to contain all of the human beings under the jurisdiction. So anyone in the United States, whether you're incarcerated in a concentration camp, or you are the most rich billionaire on the planet, or the most influential politician, the law is supposed to apply to everyone. So there's not an exclusion where you don't get the benefit if you're on the low end, and you don't get exclusionary benefit by, oh, I don't have to obey the laws by being on the upper end. And so it really parallels in a lot of ways the stratification that's happened in wealth in this country as well, where these super rich people, they're going to get all the tax breaks and they're going to get all these benefits and they're going to get all these contracts from the government and so on. And the little people are going to get less and less and less, sort of falling off the map. And this stratification is really what we're talking about here today. Everyone should be covered by the law. And yes, the conditions in the Delaney Hall, for example, in New Jersey, where people are on a hunger strike to protest the treatment of the people inside are on this hunger strike. We talked about this a little bit last week. Yes, the conditions are appalling and they absolutely need to be addressed. But also, these poor human beings are not getting represented by our law. In a Heather Cox Richardson newsletter, I believe I saw that she said there were 74 people a day on the judge's docket, which averaged out to 5 minutes per person, which is ridiculous. That's just, I mean, hi, my name is. And then it's like, okay, you're on to the next one. How is that possibly equitable, reasonable, possible at all? It's just beyond comprehension how far we have deviated from the human rights that we believe in and the laws that we have on the books.
And that is, we're talking for that group, it's the person excluded from the benefit or protection of law. And I went back and looked at the Constitution to make sure my memory wasn't failing me. It says persons. The fourth, fifth, and 15th, I think, amendments talk about persons. So that means that someone who is in this country, regardless of citizenship status, is under the rule of law, that they have the same rights and privileges regardless of their citizenship status. People, a person. And what Christy was saying about the stratification, yeah, we know the rule of law has never been perfectly applied. People with money have been able to get lighter sentences or not get prosecuted at all. We understand that. And we're not trying to say, okay, let's wave the magic wand and say that tomorrow it's all going to be perfect. we recognize that there is a process, but if we can like bring people in to under this umbrella to make it more equitable in there, that those who are being denied this equal treatment under the law, being denied fair representation, being denied the things that are codified in our Constitution. Let's get them that. Let's get these human beings the representation. And just last night, was it the Senate? They passed the humongous amount of money for Border Patrol and Customs Enforcement, but that is not for the things that those who've been studying this are advocating. That's not for more immigration judges. That's not for more immigration courts. That's not for a process that treats people fairly. That's for more ICE agents and more concentration camps, which is not bringing people under this umbrella of the rule of law.
Correct. That is exactly their intention, is to keep this split and keep them as the other, as they, and last week we talked so much about human beings, human beings, human beings. I mean, it doesn't apply to giraffes. Okay, it's not giraffes, monkeys, and tigers. We're talking the humans here that have come to this country, perhaps illegally. And there are people that are willing to self-deport, like, just let me out of here. Just let me go. And they have, no one's listening. No one can hear them because they have no voice. And that is what's so very, very hard. And to be able to come to the point where we go, oh, right, like this applies to everyone. This is very, I know they hate DEI, but this is inclusive of all the human beings that are in our country, which no one should be excluded from. And this is not about being nice, although it's nice to be able to help people. This is about following the law. Like, this is, as you say, codified. This is not a suggestion, a helpful idea, something we'd like to do ideal. And this is not idealized either. This is like the minimum requirement if you follow the law. But so many things that have been done by this regime are unconstitutional or unlawful or whatever. There is, I think, some amount of desensitization around, you've been desensitized because like, oh, well, they're just doing that. Oh, now they're doing that. Oh, now they're doing that. But these human beings, I mean, finally with this whole Delaney Hall thing, it's getting more highlighted that we have a problem here. Like, we're behaving like the countries we used to say were, well, I don't want to use his words, he who shall not be named, but the countries that we really thought were not okay in terms of what they were doing to their people. And here we are in this place of, can we recommit to being the country that we have aspired to be from the beginning?
Yeah, and following those threads of what is right. You know, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were created because the people living here then felt they weren't being fairly treated. And going back to the Magna Carta, 12, whatever it is, this is the way that humans want to be treated. It goes back to so many religious traditions. Treat others as you wish to be treated. And if some of the human beings in these concentration camps were following the process, we're following the laws, and we're picked up at court dates, we're picked up when they were doing the things that the government had said that they needed to do. And yet now they're within this system that sometimes loses people. They don't know where everyone is, or they may know where everyone is, but they're not telling relatives all the time. And going back to one of our other themes of follow the money, well, who's making the money from this? It's the private prison systems who are being paid per head. I don't exactly know the way
Going
their
rate.
contracts are are constructed, but I imagine that there is an incentive for them to increase profit by denying services. So that if they're getting paid a set amount, that they can increase their profit, and they're making huge profits. If you look at the stock market things that they have to report to investors. So this is not following the rule of law, and it's not ethical, but so many things about this regime are not ethical.
Which sort of brings me around to something you and I talked about before, we were talking about this episode, and that is dominance. So much of this is about dominating others. You dominate others by denying them things, and you dominate others by giving yourself more than your share, whether it's money or privileges or being above the law or whatever. And a byproduct of that is almost always cruelty. It was mentioned in our chat, the word cruelty, and that's part of this too. If we can other people sufficiently, then it's easier to be cruel to them because you can't relate to them. That's the whole thing with the empathy. The Tesla tyrant, as you know, was so against empathy. He was like, it's going to destroy our country to have empathy. No, the opposite is true. Empathy is what's going to save this country, for us to feel like, wait a minute, they're like me. Like, how do I not know that I'm next? Like, if you get rid of all the immigrants, and you get rid of all the gay people, and you get rid of all the people of color, and then what's next? Women. I mean, it's like the list is it's just going to come down to you eventually, where you're going to be the one getting dominated, unless we bring back that level playing field of everyone has to obey the law. And the tricky part, of course, is how do we get that to happen? We can say it, but how do we get it to happen? I mean, one way, of course, is to just keep speaking up, keep speaking out, places like this, or to your congressional people if they will listen. Ours will not listen. But you can go and protest, and you can do the banner brigade, and you can write letters, and you can send letters to the editor, and so on, and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. I like our comments in the chat here. Again, othering and exclusion leads to more exclusions, right? They're going to narrow it down till there's no one left, so that all you have are these powerful people. They have no one to rule anymore because everyone else has been shipped out of the country or allowed to die under inhumane conditions, because of course there are people definitely dying in those concentration camps without adequate medical care and such. So the way in which they are narrowing and narrowing and narrowing down who's okay obviously it'll run into a wall at some point, because there won't be anyone left.
Well, and that's an adjacent point to this, is that those who may have voted for he who shall not be named are now may be regretting their vote, because some of the impacts are hitting them. Now, what we're talking about with empathy is it shouldn't have to hit you. You shouldn't have to have a gay child to start caring about LGBTQ rights. You shouldn't have to have an immigrant housekeeper whose family is been destroyed by this to care about this. That we're seeing human beings with rights and the ability to thrive given the right circumstances. And as long as we keep saying that these are humans, and in this country, in our Constitution, that a person should have these rights.
And does have these rights. It's not we had to let them have these. No, they have these.
Yeah,
they're not being allowed right now.
The outlaws on that side, and the people who are outside of the law and not being given the rights, and keeping both of those in mind, that these are people who are not being given the rights that that are due. And also there are people who feel that they are beyond law. They don't answer to anyone. I have when I was researching for this, I found a quote from James Madison. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. Ain't that the truth?
Right? Well, at least they recognize that human frailty, the human weakness, the human, again, desire to dominate so that someone gets more and someone gets less. I mean, we all have these innate characteristics. It's whether we are mindful and conscious enough to say, oh, wait, I'm noticing that something in me that I don't want to act on. Versus them, they're like, hey, the chains are off. Like my handcuffs are gone. I can do whatever I want. This is great stuff. So you got the above the law people and you got the below the law people. And so in the center is where things are applying, and everywhere else, it's just this free for all. But this idea that Madison had of like, yeah, if men were angels, you could just trust everyone to do the right thing. But as we see, people who are above the law, think they're above the law, are not innately doing the right thing. And the people below the law have no hand, have no voice, have no way to make a change, except things like a hunger strike, and then getting people to support them by protesting outside the facility and so on. I mean, they're pulling the final lever with a hunger strike. People could get very ill. They could end up dying from that. It's a big move, but they got desperate,
Mhm.
and that they can't leverage the law. So what they can leverage is their own bodies. Unfortunately, that's what it's come down to.
Yeah. And thinking about one of the things you said when we were planning this is that there's this benefit that if being outside, being beyond the law benefits you, like those who are, billionaires, if they don't want to pay any attention to it, then that's what they're going to do. And if it uh, hurts someone else by paying attention to the law, then that's what they're going to do. So there's this two sides of I want benefit and I want to hurt other people, that dominance that Christy was talking about.
That dominance and that cruelty. And we try to keep this whole conversation, these conversations, to be about love and to be about aspiration and to be also about what we can do for ourselves. Because I've noticed, and this may be sort of tangential, I've noticed that I'm now studying Spanish on Duolingo. And I'm noticing I want to win. Like I want to prevail. I want to be the best in my category, and I want to work that so that I'm ahead of the other people. And it's like, really, is my motivation to be ahead of the other people, or is my motivation to learn Spanish? So I kind of had this, oh, right, why am I here? I'm really here to learn Spanish. What's the most effective way to do that? So you can notice in yourself, even with small trivial things. Maybe we also talked about road rage or people getting into conflict. I was telling Tony that about a month ago here in Tucson, Arizona, two men got into some sort of altercation, and I don't think they had a wreck, but they somehow were arguing. They both pulled out guns and they killed each other. Who won there? Nobody, obviously. That's how crazy it can get when we want to dominate. Like, you took my lane or whatever it was that happened. Was it really worth it? Give up your life over that? These are crazy, crazy things. So if we can collectively be noticing, oh, wait, I just went up to somebody and it felt really good. I mean, we get some endorphin hit out of it or whatever. I think some of these billionaires are just like on that all the time. I've got so much power and I've got so much wealth and I've got so much influence. Like this is just feels great at the expense of everyone else. And it's kind of a cheap thrill, not a
Mhm.
really genuine thing that lands in, like an embodied, heart-centered, I really feel this and this really matters to me kind of way. It seems super superficial and not very lasting and not very genuine in that sense. So us continuing to pay attention to where we might veer a little bit into the dominance, I
Mhm.
think that collectively helps us as well. So I'm going to be noticing when I'm out driving, when I have that moment of like, oh, how dare you? and be like, help yourself. Go right ahead. You're obviously in a bigger rush than I am, and I do not need to get in an altercation with you. Feel free. And I don't want you following me anyway. Feel free to go ahead. Help yourself.
Yeah. Well, and that's also, it helps us because it's that sense of releasing the things we can't control. At the same time, we do want to set appropriate boundaries. We don't want people, uh, just like the appropriate boundaries we're talking about here, that we're not asking for the world that people have proper representation, that they're being given documents to sign in the language they understand, or given an interpreter to help them. And that if they do want to self-deport back to their country, they're allowed to do that instead of being kept captive because the private prison companies are making money off of that head.
Well, right,
So
and that's the way it used to be with, I mean, in the old days, as in just a year and a half ago, you would do your immigration thing and you'd be released and you'd come back and have your court date. Like you didn't have to be incarcerated. It wasn't, again, this is like the false narrative of like the murderers, the worst of the worst or whatever. It's like some of these people are grandparents for having, I mean, they're like, oh, grandma, just, she's not going out there murdering people. She could go be free until she had her court date. And then there wouldn't be the 74 people in one day. It would be a small number of people, appropriately spaced. Meanwhile, you live your life. Like, this is all so unnecessary. And
yeah.
again, that goes back to like cruelty is sort of a subset of dominance, that there's baked in there, like, we can be cruel, so we're going to. We can, we can hurt these people because we're dominant over them. We have power over them. So therefore, we can make them suffer as much as we want to. And then use it for a press release around what great work we're doing. Ah, that's sort of our MAGA guy who's all about, look at the wonderful things we're doing. And it's like, are you kidding me? These things are like nothing compared to the real harms that are being done to people. And he immigrated here from Mexico. Hello. Like he should be, you would think he would be able to relate to what it's like for an immigrant to come here and to have this kind of treatment. It's very interesting.
But that requires self-reflection, that requires empathy, that requires some sense of self-knowledge about someone else's experience. And it's, in thinking about people who are, road rage or people who want this cruelty, there's something going on with them. There's some need that's unmet, and I don't want to like wallow in pity for whatever went wrong in their life. But it's also important to keep in mind that those are also human beings with whom we disagree, but we don't want to resort to the name calling and the trying to go tit for tat and respond cruelty with cruelty. We want to remember our own humanity, which is what Christy was talking about earlier, that it's not a game. And my husband and I play board games a lot, and play board games in conventions, play board games with people online. And you can notice the different types of people, where some people want to win and have to win. But as they grow and understand more about, well, it's not about winning. No, it's about having fun in the moment. It's having connection with other people. If there's only the end game of winning, if that's the only place you get satisfaction, then you're missing a lot. You're missing a lot about life. You're missing a lot about being human. You're missing a lot about the beauty of this planet and the beauty of being in community with other people.
And I think that's why it says play board games. This is not we're fighting to the death. It's not, well, I just thought of the UFC on the White House lawn. Oh, that doesn't seem like a game. That seems like something else. But yeah, this idea that we're here largely as human beings to connect. And that's so very important if you really have an orientation towards being a more open-hearted participant in life. And that's where they're going to really miss out if they don't go for that kind of connection. But at this point, reforming these people is unlikely, from a personal growth perspective, but having people follow the rule of law is not. I mean, it's a very cut and dry, it's on paper, it's well defined. If that starts happening, then things will shift, whether people's internal state shifts or not. If they're still celebrating where they can dominate, well, that's on them. But the cruelty, the inhumane conditions, the people being below the law, unable to access it, will get resolved because the law will take care of this. And that's where we have them. As you say, Madison said, if men were angels, well, they're not, clearly. And we can't reform anyone but ourselves, really. So, but as we do that work, that inner work of our own, that also, I believe, contributes to the whole. It doesn't, it's not going to fix this crisis, but it does add to making the world a better place for all. The more we look at our own stuff, the more we inquire, what's true for me? How can I contribute in a way energetically or verbally or financially? That also helps move the needle.
Well, and it also helps us stay in this fight, stay in this game. That if we remember that it's not about having an outcome that we want, because that might be in a year. So we can't take pleasure with something that might happen in a year or hopefully 2 days. I'll get my magic wand out. But it's but if
Wave it, sister. Wave it now.
If we are in the moment, there it is. If we are in the moment, then we can take pleasure in being with friends. We can take pleasure in that. And coming back to the point of this this episode is it's both sides. We want to bring the people who are not being given the benefit of the rule of law into this umbrella. And we want to keep those who feel that they are outside of the law and they don't need the law. We need to hold them accountable through the law so that they are under this umbrella, this rule of law, this beautiful concept that has survived for over 200 years, like 230 whatever years. I can't remember when the Constitution, 236. I don't know. 1780.
Roughly 250, because we know when the anniversary of this country. It's not that important, not that relevant. But yeah, the idea that we could all be part of this whole collective is really the place where this gets healed and gets cured and resolved, and things become more like we want to see our country be instead of less like we want our country to be. That we don't have to just jump off the cliff because someone said, let's go. We can say, this is what works for us. And there's the two parts too. I mean, there's the court of law and there's the court of public opinion. This is what Norm Eisen talks a lot about on Coffee with the Contrarians. And the court of public opinion is strong here too, to say, this is what we want our country to look like. This is what our values are. This is what is important to us. This is where we want our money spent. And this is where we don't want our money spent. This idea of us being these pawns in their big game, there's too many of us for them to move us all independently. So collectively, we can be this game-changing, shifting, ever focused on the right outcome kind of people. Relentless. I want us to be so relentless that we just keep going. In the chat was, we need to put up our yard signs. We got our signs, the official signs this week for our candidate, Joanna Mendoza in Arizona 6. We got 2 signs. We have never put a yard sign up before. but we're going for it. We're putting up 2-yard signs, maybe more, who knows, to say, this is what we want, this is what we want, this is what we want. Court of public opinion, people.
And remembering that what is it we're going for? We're going for a country and a world where everyone matters. Everyone is subject to fairness and equity and the rule of law.
The rule of law. That's our theme today. All right, on that note, let's put love into action together.
Together.
See you next time.